good time. Of course, we're here to see the presentation on the Southern Transcon Model Railroad, which I assure you, you'll find extremely interesting if you've seen any of their YouTubes. I'll let Dave take it from there. One announcement, if you haven't checked the board by the registration table for the door prizes, the numbers that were selected are the number on your name tags. They're all up on a board out there, so please stop by and check. We still have some that haven't been picked up yet. So, Dave, welcome, and turn it over to you.
All right, thank you. Also, questions, please hold those to the end. We're going to be doing we'll be doing a questions and answering afterwards. So, all right, so Transcon. So we often get asked, why are we doing the Southern Transcon? And well, it's a compromise between a BNSF and Santa Fe modeler, and you know, an entire mainline. You know, why are we doing it as extensively as we are? Well, as far as we're aware of, nobody has done an entire mainline. What we model is starting at Willow Springs, Illinois, and it goes through Vaughn, New Mexico. And people always ask, well, why Vaughn, New Mexico? Well, you know, despite the size, we do have to stop somewhere, and it's about the halfway point. And then several aspects not done on a railroad. This is also one of those cases because it's a new railroad, you know, a new layout. We can include stuff that hasn't been done on a layout, and we can also take advantage of all the new technology that's coming out in the past few years. So also a note on that everything you see here, the layout is about 3.5 years old. So everything you're seeing has been done in the past 3.5 years. The building. The overall building size is a 100 by 65 feet. The actual train room is 100 by 40 feet. It's got 5,000K LED lights, and the train room portion has been built out to residential standards. It's got drywall, drop ceiling, and full HVAC. Some construction pictures started in September of 2020, and it did take an entire year to do. So about August 2021 is when we got the certificate of occupancy. Yeah, a year to get it built. Yeah, it did take a while, but anybody that's building in Middle Tennessee can tell you, it seems like everybody's moving there, everybody's building, so finding somebody to build it, get material, you know, get subcontractors is like trying to herd cats. So, yeah, it was quite a process, but, you know, we got it done. And a few more progression pictures. And this is about what it looks like on the outside. So, it's a barnuminium style building, and you know, from the outside, it looks like a pole barn. And what a barnuminium is it's got a living space with a shop or a storage space attached to it. Now, since I built mine, it got featured on Home and Garden, and now in my area alone, we've had 3 or 4 barnuminiums. It's one of those buildings, especially for like empty nesters, where they need to downsize, but they got like a car collection, or they just want to work on stuff. Well, this is kind of ideal for them. So the popularity for them really is taking off. This is what the train room looked like when we got it. Now, since then, we have added another row of lights, so it's a lot brighter in there. And you may notice off to the side here, that's the crew room, and then there's also a storage room, which we use for storing supplies, and then like Terry and I, we got our model railroad collections in there too. Within the actual crew room, this is also some of the stuff we had to do before we got started on the layout, which was build the workbench. So that's what ours looks like. Then track plan. Now, this is one of those cases where we actually had the track plan before we had the building. So the building was actually built around the track plan. Now, I know I have the slide up here. We also have a printout of them over here along with the dispatch screen. So afterwards, if you guys want to take a closer look, or if you had some additional questions after you look, we'll be around to discuss that stuff. This is starting with the lowest level, which is the staging yard. There's actually two yards in our staging yard. It's what we call the manual yard and the auto yard. And the reasons we call them that is because if someone's down there and running a train, they want to park it, we may ask them to park it in the manual yard, because when the computer is running trains and it needs to put one in the staging yard, they'll park it in the auto yard. Also, we have a return loop, so you can turn your train, be able to run your trains in and then reverse orientation so they can come back out. The grade coming out of the staging yard is 1.5%, and it accesses the layout the Y at our junction. The manual yard has 14 tracks, while the auto yard has 10 tracks, and the staging yard is 22 inches from the floor, so getting in height. The next level, the main level, that's where you get Willow Springs. Other notable locations on the main level is the power station at Joliet, and then you have Emporia, and then also Matfield Green. And as I mentioned, there in our junction, just outside of Emporia, that's where the staging yard comes in. The main level is at 37.5 inches from the floor, so it's about here. And there is a 16-inch separation between it and level 2. And then also the staging yard, it has about 11-inch separation. The next level, second level, this is where most of the single tracks is located, where everywhere else it's either double or even triple track. Some locations use the Helix to go from 1 to 2, and I'll talk about that a little bit later too. Notable locations on level 2 is you got Cassidy, El Dorado. I know it was pointed out yesterday, I'm saying that wrong. Augusta, and then also the start of Curtis Hill. And Curtis Hill is how the second level becomes the third level, because all throughout here it's climbing at just like the railroad at 1%, and then at Belvis is where it levels out just like the real thing, but then it jumps up to 2%. And the reason why we had to do that is because, well, not only do we have to get to a certain elevation for the third level, whenever you're modeling real life, you got to exaggerate some of the effects to be able to get the same look. Where if you're standing at the just like the real thing, when you're standing at the bottom of the Curtis Hill looking at it, it really does look like it's like a roller coaster just taking off. And then the third level, this is got the top of Curtis Hill, and then you got Woodward and Satuck, Kansas, or I'm sorry, Oklahoma. And then also on the third level is where the Payton branch comes off, and it goes up to Payton, Texas. Now, you may notice some things on the layout that are a little bit more appropriate for BNSF, like Willow Springs, and then other things are a little bit more appropriate for Santa Fe, like the Payton branch, early 90s is when it got spun off, and then by 2000 it was gone altogether. So that's Santa Fe. And the reason why the layout that we always say is from 1995 to 2005, and some things are a little bit more Santa Fe, others are BNSF. So that way, regardless of what you run, somewhere on the layout it fits in. And then for the third level, the last part in the layout is Baum, New Mexico, with the SP crossover. The third level is 77 inches from the floor, so it's about here on me. And then this is also, when we first got started with Benchwork, we had to build the divider wall. Now what's different about our wall is it's a continuous wall with a 90-degree turn, a 180-degree turn, and then it ends with a 20-degree turn. The challenge for building this wall is how to connect it through a drop ceiling to the rafters above. And you may notice them here. They're actually 1.5-inch rods that's making 2 points of contact on the wall and then going through the drop ceiling and connecting with the rafters above. And it does a pretty good job of securing that, and it's pretty sturdy actually. Benchwork. This is a picture of the first piece of benchwork we put in. That was September 20th of 2021. So, for the layout has birthday. That's the layout's birthday. One of the things, once we got started, we standardized. We used 1x4 boards of white pine. That's the wood we used. And when possible, it's about the benchwork is 3 inches and it's 12 inches on center. But as we got into it, we had to update our standards because we found out the hard way that temperature and humidity affects wood. And that's what we found is that the wood shrinks and swells with the changing of the seasons. So what we decided to do was seal the wood by painting it before we build it. And we opted to use autumn sky blue. And it may seem a little loud at the moment, but once we get all the scenery on top, the fascia on the side, backdrop on the a printout on the backdrop, then all you're really going to see is just what's on the bottom side. And that's why we went with blues. That way it helps blend the bottom of the benchwork above it with the backdrop on the side. We also started using, our lumber supplier is Lowe's in Columbia, and that's our only source. So we found that we could get, we were using 8-foot, we started using 15-foot sections. And with less joints, it's less, less point, one less point to flex. So, and then in addition, we started using glue in addition to screwing it together. So with that, it greatly increased the strength of the layout. Now, securing this stuff to the wall, we opted to use just shelf brackets, which again is available from Lowe's. And we put them on the top rather than the bottom. And you can kind of see here why, because when we have the backdrop hardboard over them and connect from the top, then you don't really see them because the backdrop blocks it on the wall, and then we'll have scenery, especially if the tracks are on riser, is going to be above it. So on the bottom side, it's much cleaner, and you don't see that stuff. And it really does a good job of holding it to the wall. I mean, it's stiff enough that I can grab a hold and do pull-ups from them. So. Then going from there, roadbed. All of our roadbed is cut from 4x8 plywood, and we print out templates from AnyRail. AnyRail is the program that we used to design this. 3/4 inch, 4x8. And then printing it out, we have a Dell or T210 printer, which can print out up to 2 inches wide, and then rolls of paper, it can print out 100 feet if you wanted to. And then you can tape them together, and you see some of the templates. It can print out real, actual size templates, and then also we printed out bigger stuff. This helped us build the benchwork for a little bit more complex.
Where did you get that big of a print?
It's the printer. It can be just bought offline from Dell. It's,
How big are the sheets that you printed?
You can get them up to the rolls. We printed up to 100 feet long. The rolls, I don't remember how long. They're 2 feet wide, but I don't remember how long the actual rolls are. But it'll cut off any excess. And then putting them together, it helped with any complex bench work. So we know just how wide or big it needs to be. And then then another picture of the printout. And then we initially started by using a drilling hole, then using a plug and wood glue to joint our road bed, but we eventually switched over to using router bits, a tongue and groove method with wood glue. And then once it's all put together, mounted on risers, this is matte field green. And then sometimes this is secured directly to the benchwork, like over here in Emporia. Just kind of, if there's an elevation change, if it needs to be on risers or not. So once the road bed was in, cork, we used Midwest cork. And then again, using templates printed out from any rail, it helped us lay out where the cork needs to be. And then also we used templates from Fast Track to get like the curves that we needed to. Then we used just white Elmer's glue and thumbtacks to glue it down and secure it while the glue is drying. Track, here's kind of how much track we have. 1,535 pieces of flex track, and keep in mind this is only the main line. It doesn't include Emporia, sidings or anything like that. 378 switches and 1,600 feet of main line. And again, with the track, establishing standards. We used Atlas Code 83 for the track, and then the new Walthers Code 83 switches, which is all GCC friendly, Atlas rail joiners, and then we opted to use glue instead of nails. And the reason being is, especially, it's not as noticeable when you have curves in your trackage, but nice long stretches of railroad, just those nail heads just really jumps out that they're there. So we opted, and again, using white Elmer's glue, glue it down. And on the main line, nothing less than number 8 switches, and even then, it's almost always 10. I think there's a few places that are number 8s. And the sharpest we use is a number 6, but that's off the main line, that'd be in yards. And then on the main line, the minimum curve we have is 40 inches. So everything else is 40 inches or more. We opted to use tortoise switches, switch machines for our switches, and I know there's servos out there that can be used, and the reason we use tortoises is because they have, or you can set the DS74 to have a continuous power draw, and Railroad Co., which is the program we use to dispatch, can sense that, that which way the switch is based on its power draw. So that way, with like the servos, they throw the switch and then they shut off. Where if they get inadvertently, for one reason or another, thrown, then it won't align with what Railroad Co. thinks they are. Joining the track together, like I said, we used Atlas rail joiners. What we opted to do was we soldered the feeders directly to the rail joiners, so that way every piece of track has 2 points of power connection. And I know some folks like soldering their feeders directly to the rail, and that's perfectly fine. This is just what we're doing. And previous layouts that Terry and I have worked on, and this layout, so far we've not had any issues with stuff eventually working loose. And we also used fast track ties under these rail joints. And the reason being is, rather than an Atlas tie, is with that rail joint, it will create a slight hump by being there, where the fast track ties actually have a slightly lower profile than the Atlas track, so that compensates for the rail joiner, so there's no hump at the joints. Backdrop is just 4x8 hard, they call it hardboard panel, and again, this comes from Lowe's. It is very flexible, and then what I like is on one side it's nice and smooth, and then on the back it's got a rough pattern, so it really gives a surface for glue the hole. And once you can glue it together on the ground, or you can put it up here. This is above Curtis Hill, where we have to use entire pieces. And then once we get it up there, we use wood glue to secure it to the wall, and then staples to hold it until the glue dries. And then once it's up there, just same thing as drywall. Use drywall.
What are you using for spacers where those brackets are so that a bump over stands?
Here, you can use a piece of wood that's just like 1/2 inch. So then you see how that covers up the brackets. And then we use just same thing as drywall, just drywall putty and drywall tape to fill in any holes, and then paint it again afterwards. The Helix, this actually generates a lot of interest, both whenever we're talking to folks or online. And what makes our Helix different is that it's actually a Helix within a Helix. And what I mean by that is using the same corkscrew, you have level 1 coming out, going around and going up to level 2, and then from the other direction, you have level 1 coming out and going up to level 3. We opted to use, again, 4x8 plywood, 3/4 inch. And we opted to use the rod and bolt method. And I know there's, you use 2x4, blocks, get your separation. That works too, just what we opted to do. And each, they were cut out a quarter of a circle, and they're joined together using the tongue and groove method. And you may also notice that while everything else is blue, this is all black. And you may have noticed that with the staging yard too. And the reason being is that anything that we consider off the layout, so that way you know if you're running on layout or if you're just simply staging, or in this case, transitioning to 2 portions of the layout. You're not on the layout, technically. And again, we used templates from AnyRail, and once we cut out the first pieces, we used those as templates, so that way everything was the same, and we used a router to cut them out. And this is what the template from AnyRail looked like. And then once we got them cut out, we glued them together, tongue and grooved and glued them together, and we assembled them off to the side. And as we were building this, because there's such a tight clearance between the two, whenever we put a layer in, we went ahead and did the cork, the track, the wiring for it, and we also painted this. This is actually from Krylon, from their camo series, Hunter Camo Brown. And this is also what we paint on the layout itself. That's what we paint the ties. It's what people recommended online, and we like it. Everybody else seems to like it too, on their layouts. So, but the reason why we just painted this, we didn't weather the rail, is just that raw plastic. We just didn't like the look of it. So, and then each layer or each loop is about 2 weeks. And that's what you'll see here. Why am I so excited that it's done? Is because our Helix, it was a 7-month process building our Helix. There are 3 loops in our corks, and we have level 1 coming in, and that's why I mentioned before, it's double track, and it comes in below the other level 1, so it's inside. It goes around, and then level 1, it goes up to level 3. And then level 1 comes in on the outside of these, goes around and comes out to level 2. And our loops are 40, the inner 2 are 40 and 45 inches, and then the level 1 is 48 inches. There are 10 loops, and the inner loop, which is level 1 to 3 is double track, and it's got 10 blocks in it. So that way, you don't have to wait for one train to go all the way down before the next one. And then 1 to 2 is 2 blocks. And we timed it, even at track speed, it's about a 7-minute trip going from 3 down to 1. And then right now, we don't have wheel springs built, so when you come out, you almost immediately go around the reverse loop, a temporary reverse loop, and you go back up, another 7-minute trip back up. So that's what these guys keep complaining, I need to put chairs and mini fridge in here because you spend a lot of time waiting for the train. Wiring and DCC. We use DCC, we use ESU, and their DCC system is ECOS, and that's a picture of it on our dispatch desk. But our signaling and control is actually Digitrack. And I'll get into that just a little bit more here in a bit. For bus wiring, it's 18 gauge for the track, and then we use 20-2 bell wire for feeders and the switch machines, which the 18 gauge is stranded, but the bell wire is solid, but because it's kind of a bit on the small side, we never have a problem, routing it and managing it. And then we also use what's called suitcase connectors instead of soldering. And again, that's just what we do. We haven't had any problems with it, but when talking with other people that have had problems, one of the common things that we found is suitcase connectors come in different sizes based on what wiring you're clipping into, and people are buying the wrong size connectors for their wire. So if you get too small of a connector for your wire, you may end up, instead of pinching it, clipping into it, you may cut it. Where on the reverse side, that if you get too big of a connector, then it's not getting a good connection to it.
What's the advantage of a suitcase connector over?
It's much quicker connecting a feeder. Literally, all you're doing is just clipping on the wire and running your feeder into it, and then using a pair of pliers, you're crimping it, and it's connecting both of them together. Instead of having to separate the insulation, wrap the wire around it, and soldering it. And that's just what we're doing. And another thing that was pointed out to us why they work so well is because why you don't see them like automobiles, or because there's no vibration. There's nothing to shake them loose. So it's just much quicker, which is why we opted to do it. And then this is our power district. This is actually under the Helix because there's a reverser. But this is what our boosters look like. And then each one powers 2 detectors. And each detector, then each one of the wires is a block. And the reason why we have to have so many blocks is because of our railroad code, which I'll get into in a second, why the layout is wired up like it is. So that's what it looks like, and try to keep our wiring a little as clean as we can. And then control. This is for both signals and switches. We use Digitrack for signaling. We use SE74s, which it can power both signals and switches. But because we got a lot more switches than signals, where we need, we use a DS74 then for switches. And you can set it for for your switches, a continuous power supplies, and tortoises are meant to have a continuous power supply, so that way it's constantly applying tension to whatever way it's supposed to be thrown. And then it's all connected with the local net. That's how the computer and DCC communicates with these. Signals, we have 182 signals on the layout. It's a combination of Atlas, BLMA, we have 3D printed signals, and then some signals are kit bashed, kind of depending on the location. And they're all controlled, which you saw through the SE74s and railroad code. That is the dispatch system that we use. And with wiring, reminder folks, mile railroading is supposed to be fun. Yeah, I don't remember folks, whenever they talk about their layout, I don't remember people talk about that part. Our dispatch area, this is what ours looks like, and it's right beside, and you can see it on our track diagram. It's at the end of Willow Springs. We use, it's a single dispatcher using Railroad & Co. It's by Funeral Software, and we have the gold. You can get by them either in gold, silver, or bronze. All that is just features. You don't. It's cheaper, but you don't get all the features. We have the gold version. The system actually does a lot of the legwork for the dispatcher. It will manage lining routes, lining up your signals. It will train movement, block see. So all the dispatcher really needs to keep up with is, allowing trains out or bring them in the yards. And then in addition to all the dispatching it'll help with, it'll also what we call auto run trains. What that is exactly what it sounds like, that it will run trains, and if it needs to put them in siding, it'll run them in siding style, for meat. And I'll get into this a little bit in depth here in a moment, but it's just, extra stuff that our dispatch program can do. Our dispatch screen, as you guys saw, is 2 screens. It can detect, detect trains, it can track them, it can detect if a block is occupied, and then it can run, there's 2 versions that it can run trains. It can either run spontaneously, which that's just running trains with no particular place to go, or you can run scheduled trains. And then that's where you can say, at this time, I want this train to run from here to there. And you can assign a priority, so that way, intermodal doesn't go in the hole for a coal train. And that'd be a little bit more handy if we're running locals. You have a yard crew build up, a local, and then the computer can run it up to Stook, for example, and then whenever that local crew, switch crew goes on, gets called, then their train's already there, they can break it down and start switching, if that's what they want to do. And then here is a short video of the computer in action. What we're seeing here is actually it's a meet between 3 trains. There we go. This is up at Tilligen. What you're seeing is one coming in on a single track, and it's actually running 2 trains up here at the end of the siding. And it's going to stop one. Well, it's got to stop both of them because it's meat train. And you can see how it's tracking its the train ID, and it shows the occupied blocks. And then also it shows what route here is selected for the train. Now, with the auto run, the computer will always stop the train about 6 inches from the signal, and that way it gives a little bit of space, margin of error. And it's got about 170-inch what's called a brake ramp. That's where the train's going from track speed down to threshold speed. And then the last 12 inches before the stop point, much like the road crews, they'll creep up to the signal, hoping, oh, come on. Well, this guy just got ran around. So we noticed that the computer, a train in motion, it tends to keep trains in motion. So you can see that once the rail train cleared up, it lined up the next one, and lined up the signals and the switches. So off it goes. And keep in mind, during this, I'll get your insight. This entire video, the computer is running everything. The trains, the signals, everything. And the reason why we're using computer is, so far the record, we've had 20 trains out there running at once, and just trying to get that many people together for an operating session, is a bit of a challenge. So we want to use the computer to supplement, and you can run your trains out there too. Just got to follow the signals just like you normally would. So that way you'll supplement trains out there, because you saw 1600 main line. If you only got 10 people there, that's kind of a lonely railroad.
What did you use for rail on that rail train?
Styrene.
Styrene?
And then also, instead of a card system, we're using, it's called Train Tracks by Hive ID, and it's by a gentleman by the name of Carlton Brown. It uses RFID chips to keep track that we put on the bottom of every car, and just like the real thing that's got an identifier on it, it's got road number, it keeps track of all that stuff. And whenever it runs over a scanner, it'll update the system. Now, what's different about this system is that it's actually designed to interface with JMRI. So you can build your car system, your routing, your card system in JMRI, and this will update it as cars are going over the scanners, and keeping track of the car's progress. And it replaces a card system. With a layout this size, the reason why we decided to do this, the more we can have a computer automate stuff for us, the better. That's one less position. We gotta find somebody to keep track of this stuff. It automatically, every time the car runs over a scanner, it'll update JMRI with the car's progress along its route. And each scanner uses Wi-Fi to connect to a Raspberry Pi that connects with the computer, so you don't have to run a separate, for every scanner. Yes, sir.
Are you using Railcom in your DCC system with your transponder?
Yes. Yes.
So that's how you keep track of your trains?
Well, transponding, and then the and one of the reasons why we like ESU so much is that Railcom. The decoders actually communicate their information to the system. So if you got an engine and you put it on there on your throttle, you don't have to bring that stuff up. It'll pop up, hey, we just found this engine. What do you want to do with it? Transfer next. This is what the scanner looks like. It's got a thin layer of plastic over it, so you can put ballast glue on it. You're not going to hurt it. And then on the bottom, this is what they look like. This one is power supply with, there's just two of them that happen to be beside each other. And what we did was, it uses a 12-volt input. We just ran a 12-volt circuit, so whenever we put in a scanner, all we have to do is just clip into the power supply, and it's been working out very well. And then you can also see the suitcase connectors and kind of what our wiring underneath looks like. So that kind of brings us to where we are now. So the question is what next? We are about 99% done with the benchwork and track and wiring at the moment, although we still have to build Willow Springs. And the reason we haven't built it yet is because Willow Springs will enclose the layout and will create a duct under. And so we're holding off on that until we're a little bit more done with the rest of the layout before we build that. You can see that we're starting to get started on both ballast and scenery. This is the top of the Helix, and plaster cloth. And I talked a little bit about the backdrop that we're using. We found a printing service that can print off wallpaper, and you can upload imagery and they'll print it. And we're using from Google Maps, you can download their Street View, and you can buy an app from Google that'll then remove all the watermarks from them and splice all them together. So we're able to just take street views from the actual locations and print them off, and then just like just like wallpaper, and put it on the backdrop. So and currently the layout is down, and the reason being is because they're at Fort Sumner, which is at the end of this stretch. We just finally got the piers in, and we got here in the next couple of weeks we're going to be getting the actual bridge portion. So we removed the temporary section, and we're about to put in the actual model of Fort Sumner Bridge. And we're only like 3 spans short of our model is only 3 spans short of the actual bridge. So it's a pretty big bridge. And then I'd like to give a shout out to these folks. Some are here, some are not, or at least not today. It just goes, all these folks, they've either done like 3D printing projects for us, or they built something for us, or even just supplied reference pictures or information about a particular location, which goes to show you don't have to physically be there to be able to help. And we're always appreciative of anybody that can help any way possible. So with that, I'm sure there's plenty of questions. I'll open up. What do you guys want to know? Oh, I saw him first.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Is there the technology now to do this scale-wise derailment detection?
Actually, good question. Railroad & Co. operates kind of in theory. And like when it comes to derailments, the computer doesn't really know if a train's derailed or not. That's kind of why we always have people out walking around just watching stuff. So that way, if something jumps off, we can holler, say to the railroad, hey, stop train number, blah, 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 blah. And that also brings up another good point that I didn't really talk about because it's not the layout, our rolling stock standards. We require both resistors on every car. One of the axles has to be resistors, and then we have to have metal wheels, metal couplers. The car has to be weighted, and the wheels have to be, wheel gauge has to be checked, coupler height has to be checked, and it doesn't matter if it's a top of the line after Genesis, scale trains, or I found issues with everything. So as Jurgen mentioned, there is no such thing as ready to run. Everything has to be inspected. You're going to find something, and that actually goes a long way to eliminating a lot of those derailment issues. And also the reason why we require resistors on every car is so that way after the power clears, like a switch, computer doesn't show a block clear and try to line up the next one when you got a train still, stretched out over it. And then also like Emporia, if you have a cut of cars, on the block swap portion of it, that's all transponding. That the computer doesn't try to run a train on top of a cut of cars, so you can see that there's something in there. So that fully answer your question? That the computer doesn't know if something's derailed, you have to tell it to stop.
The technology's in the future.
Yeah, it's out there. Okay. Yes, sir.
So for like an articulated car, like a double stack 5-pack, is it one RFID for that, or do you gotta do one for each well?
If it's one car, I know that's considered one car, it's 5 units, that would be just one chip. So, yes, sir.
How'd you finance this project?
Self-financed. Basically, these guys help where they can, but, I pay for all the stuff.
That building?
Yep, yeah, the building is mine, but I always say the layout belongs to whoever works on it. So, like, some of these guys, they don't need me to get into it, so, yeah.
Explain a little more of the term barn dominium.
I'm not sure who came up with that term, but what the term means is that from the outside, and our building is a little bit more of a plain Jane, but they make some really nice looking, it's usually metal sheet. It looks like a pole barn from the outside, but it's still 16 on center studs. And usually it's a living space with a garage or shop area attached to it.
So you have living space in this?
Yes.
What we do?
Yeah, that's where I live. So it's about the size of a 1-bedroom apartment. Just for the time being, I can't afford to have it.
What are your priorities?
Yeah, it's got a big layout.
They got the house there and then the shop on the back.
Sorry, that's all. Yes, sir.
That's like,
So
that's pretty
you
much
said
how-
you use light glue to glue down your track along the way? Did you have any problems when you came back ballasting with?
Yeah, yes, and that was actually brought up to us before we got into that. One of the things we do, and you saw it in one of the slides, we have metal weights that holds the track while we're gluing it. We just put those back on after we get done gluing. We just put them back on there while they're ballasting.
While you're ballasting?
Yes.
Okay.
But so far, we haven't had any problems with it softening back up and, Yes, sir.
When you have the current going through the wheels with the resistor, is that part of the DCC or is that something else that's
That,
being current?
that is, the resistors are actually something else. What we use is surface mounted resistors. It's a 1/4 watt, 10,000 ohm resistor, and it's sometimes, depending on the make, if it's got a plastic axle, that's glued on there, and we use electric conductive paint then to connect it, the resistors to the wheels. And it's just enough of a draw that the computer can sense it.
Now, that's the part I want to know about. Is the DCC's got constant volts in the track all the time, but does it sense currents through the track too?
Yes, it can sense a draw.
Oh.
And that's what that resistor is doing. It's not much, but it's just enough that the system can detect, there's something wrong. It's the same thing with like a ring engineer EOT. you know, that little LED on there that flashes, well, that's enough withdrawal that the system can detect that. Yes, sir.
How many cars do you project being on the layout?
On the layout, I know, Alex, how many in Emporia?
If Emporia's packed to the gills, it's what, 13 tracks is what we have? It's about 600 cars, but that's not prototype, so.
Yeah, Emporia's normally not that full, but that's just Emporia.
Well, I'm just sitting there thinking of the current loads, when you move that many cars on those resistor drives, you're gonna have to make smaller power districts.
Yeah, well, not so much power districts. Each track is its own block. So, yeah, that not all those cars are on the same detector or even booster. Like Emporia, I think it's on.
Well, they all have to come back to a power source.
Yeah, yes,
So-
but, and that's also one of the reasons why, right now, and we haven't had any problems with it, there's 2 detectors on every booster, but it is wired up that should that become a problem, that each, we can put in separate the detectors to an individual, one booster for every detector. So we can add boosters if needed. But so far, we haven't had that problem, but we haven't had that many cars on layout yet. Yes, sir.
With that all being said, how many amps of boosters do you have?
It's 8 amps for boosters.
No. How many, you're not running that whole railroad on 8 amps.
How many boosters?
Oh,
8 boosters. Right, 15 volts, 8 boosters.
Yeah, each one's putting out, 15 volts, 8 amps, and there's, I want to say 9 boosters in addition to the command station.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So that answers your
80
question?
amps.
8.
Have you had operating sessions yet or anything?
Yes, now our operating sessions, because we don't have like industries in yet, we haven't ran like locals and yard crews yet. So our operating sessions is running mainline trains for the time being. But eventually, as we get stuff, buildings built, put in, then we'll start setting up
How many
locals.
trains have you run at one time so far?
So far, we've had 20 trains out there running once, but per railroading code in its simulation, we can run 26 trains at once before things start bottling up, turning into a big parking lot. Now, once we do start running locals and they start, occupying the main while they're doing their switching, that drops to about 15 trains before things start backing up. But, if it's just stuff out there running, we've had 20 out there at once, but the computer says we can run 26.
Kind of to expand on the car question, each of our trains is designed to be a 25-foot train, so a couple engines, 30, 35 cars. So do the math, we're probably, expected 2,000 cars-ish, maybe.
Yeah, and that's, the layout's designed to run 25-foot trains, so that's our train lane. Any other questions, or, yes, sir?
So with the computer and the electronic car card system, will the computer eventually be able to switch out like industries and whatnot, or is that still a human in person?
That's one of those, again, in theory. We plan on that's something a person has to do. In theory, the computer could do it, but it just takes a lot of calibrating to be able to get the reliably stop where it needs to be.
So related to the industry thing, so for your RFIDs, is your RFID system, your detection of individual cars, is that more akin to AEI along the main lines?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's not on spurs?
Well, we have it both on the main, entrance and exits to all the yards, all the industries, and you can put them on the main line, so that way, it pops up, hey, this car's in a train, at this milepost.
But so like if you switch an industry, will the computer be able to detect that you place these 3 grain hoppers, for example, at the industry?
Yes. Yeah, that's why we're putting a scanner at every industry, so that way it's running over it and it's updating, hey, this car's now at this industry. So that way, it'll update JMRI, so that way next time it knows, to reverse it, hey, those cars now need to get pulled. Yes, sir.
Who's your RFID supplier manufacturer?
It's Hive ID, and the system's called Train Tracks.
You said that before, I'm sorry.
And I'll bring that slide up, so it's got his website and everything. That's who we use.
So based on that tracking system, can your computer develop switch lists or priorities for switch crews? Take stuff from one industry to another industry? Or?
That's an Alex
Yeah,
question.
that'll all depend on your JMRI operations kung fu. So the whole system lays on top of JMRI operations and is designed to kind of modernize and improve your experience. So JMRI can do that, so yes.
Yeah, and you can have a degree of randomness to it. So, one running session, industry may get, one car. The next time it may get 3 cars. And then you can also, correct me if I'm wrong, in JMRI, you can have like bad order pop up. So
that's programmable,
it can
yes.
run over a scanner, and then suddenly the JMRI will say, hey, that car needs to be set out.
Hot box detector on it, huh?
Well, we plan on having, there's a gentleman out there, what's the museum in California, that's got an actual Santa Fe, recording, for hot box detector. He can set the milepost that we have, so we can actually have, you run over a defect detector, it'll read out,
What
milepost.
makes it kick on the car? How does it know the car is bad?
That's it.
How does this thing know the car is bad?
It's just kind of random, kind of like, there's nothing, there's nothing physically wrong with the car. It's
Oh.
simulating that there's
Oh,
something wrong.
Make believe.
Yeah, kind of like the real thing. You have a hot box and you got a restricted speed to the next setup. So it kind of adds another dimension of while running trains. Yes, sir.
Now, everything that I've seen so far has been freight. Do you do any director specials or, some passenger runs?
Just during our era, the area the layout covers, yeah, there's just Amtrak. And even then, it doesn't run on all the entire line. So that's not to say like that, the steam special that, they ran there in the early 90s. You can run that too. It's just, it's not a regular thing that we do.
Plan on incorporating Amtrak into it?
Wherever appropriate, yeah. So, it ran on some parts, but not others. It's just at the moment, nobody has an Amtrak train. So got around by one.
I guess for our current building, we're only, Amtrak would run NR Junction to La Junta, so that's probably only a 150-foot run. And then once you get out west, we hadn't gone past Belen yet, so very short run.
And Alex kind of brings up a question, kind of a question that we get asked often, why are we stopping at Farm, New Mexico? And the reason being is because it's the halfway point on the main line. And I'm not committing to anything just yet, but I will say that there is another 100 by 40 building site that I can add onto the building, and we can keep going. But we got to get it worked out.
Are you guys all single?
So Terry's already drawn up the track plan.
We don't have wives.
Go all the way out to Barstow. And Barstow sings it along.
It's already drawn up, by the way.
Yeah.
We're going to Barstow.
But
Only
we got to
Barstow?
get this done first.
I'm from Huntsville, so when you want an operating crew.
Yeah, well, like I said, right now we're down at the moment because we got unless you're willing to Evel Knievel, Fort Sumter. We got to get that put in, but hopefully here in a couple months we'll be back up. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
What kind of major river bridges are you gonna have?
We have Medina there on the Joliet subdivision. We got Fort Sumter. Any other major crossings?
That's not the only 2 big ones.
I think that's it. Now, granted, we have
You got the
smaller stuff, but no major, like that.
I got put up the lights because I have a feeling some people want to look at these.
Yeah, and we have both a printout of our track plans and the computer screen over here. So afterwards, if you guys want to take a closer look, or if you have any additional questions, we'll be here to answer them. So, I guess unless anybody has any.